South African Liquor Brand Owners Association, there you go, says it plans to stop supplying liquor outlets who have lost their licenses for breaking lockdown regulations. Now, this follows a string of arrests and raids at overcrowded establishments this weekend that those establishments found to be operating after the curfew time. The crackdown comes amid concerns that pubs, bars and taverns could host super spreader events that may fuel a second wave of infections. There you can see him. CEO of the SA Liquor Brand Owners Association is Kurt Moore. He joins us now live for a bit more on this. Kurt, it's great to have you on. Thanks very much for coming onto the AM report. Take us through the thinking behind this. Are you not worried that your move might play into the hands of those operating in the illicit market?
Good morning, and thank you for having me on the show. As you rightfully mentioned, we are considering our options, and we have taken a decision not to supply any traders who are breaking the current regulations, the COVID regulations. We'd like to implore both traders and consumers to comply with the regulations, wearing masks, social distancing, and especially sticking to the trading hours. And yes, while there is a concern that if we stop supply that they will turn to illicit sources, but the reality is, as good corporate citizens, any trader that is not in compliance with regulations falls outside the law, and we do not serve clients who do not operate within the law.
Take us through practically what this looks like. I mean, you know, the situation is likely to change every day, if not every weekend. How are you going to keep track of which of your clients are actually within the bounds of the law, so to speak?
Well, we are working closely with government. When we had incidents in the Western Cape where 44 businesses lost their licenses, we reached out to the Western Cape Liquor Authority, asked for their details, and circulated that amongst our members and asked them to please remove them from their customer database.
My understanding is that you're also appealing on the public to report non-compliance. I put it to you that sometimes it's that very public actually pressurizing these liquor outlets to remain open and to sell outside the bounds of when they are allowed to sell. How do we begin tackling that very complex issue? In other words, not everyone who's a customer is necessarily a good guy.
Absolutely, and we're relying on the good guys to make use of the number and report these incidences through the hotline that we have created.
Okay, what is the possible impact that this is likely to have on your bottom line?
Well, we're concerned about the actions of these traders, and I must say it's very few traders. The majority of the traders are complying with the regulations, but these few place the industry at risk and our entire supply chain and all the livelihoods that depend on this industry.
Give me an idea of how many people you do supply as it stands. I mean, how much of the market share are you accountable for?
Well, I'm afraid I don't have the exact numbers, but we are, as the South African Liquor Brand Owners Association, as well as BASA, the Beer Association of South Africa, and Vinpro, representing wine sellers, operating as a collective, and I would suggest that we have in excess of 90% of the market.
Right, okay. Because what I'm trying to get my head around is how much of an impact is this likely to really have in shifting the dial, so to speak? Because at the heart of this is attitudes, isn't it, right? People just need to know what the law is and have the right attitude to complying with the law, because one doesn't want to risk opening for 3 more hours when potentially you could be barred from operating for 3 more months because of the impact that those 3 hours have.
Absolutely. It's those behaviors that we need to change. I heard an insert from your show earlier about whether it is ignorance or fatigue. I think it's fatigue. People are tired of the restrictions. They want to get out. We're moving into the summer months, but we must bear in mind that we are still dealing with a pandemic. We still have the virus in our midst, and we have to call on consumers to continue with their practices. Like I said, social distancing, wearing masks, etc. And we call upon consumers and traders to comply with the regulations.
And one of the many sociological conversations that have come up since the lockdown came into effect and the backlash to do with alcohol sales is around whether or not there's enough of a conversation about how dependent South Africans are to alcohol consumption. Many of those coming from sociologists and the likes, but I haven't necessarily heard much on that conversation from industry players. What's your take on this issue? Is this the right moment for us to start speaking about that within the industry, about perhaps how many South Africans are just functional alcoholics?
Yeah, look, what we've said as an industry, and we've decided we want to invest significant amounts of money, up to 115 million rand, in dealing with issues of alcohol-related abuse. We are serious about tackling issues. Amongst them is binge drinking and driving. So those are issues that we believe as industry we should be tackling, and we want to form a social compact with government and society to help us address those ills.
Yeah, and what are the strides that have been made insofar as that is concerned so far?
Well, as an industry, we've reached out, as I mentioned, to government to work with us on a social compact. We're making the investment of 150 million rand into dealing with alcohol abuse. And as I said, we want to call on government to work with us as well as with society to try and find solutions.
All right, before we let you go, Kurt, there is this hotline that you've already mentioned. How does it work? How do people get a hold of it if they want to report some of these establishments that are flouting lockdown regulations?
I wish I had that in front of me. I've unfortunately closed my screen down, but there's a hotline that we have available for consumers. I'm sorry, I just didn't call up that screen.
All right, not to worry. We'll try to get that to our viewers, especially those that are interested, to get a sense of how it works. Thank you for coming into the AM report to give us an idea of how you are trying to play your part to ensure that some of these liquor outlets adhere to those lockdown regulations. Kurt Moore is the CEO of the South African Liquor Brand Owners Association. They're saying that they're planning to actually, or they're willing to cut supply to some of their clients who are some of these outlets that are found to be flouting lockdown regulations. Do you think this will go far enough? And this comes, of course, at the back of a few establishments, some popular ones in Sandton that have been closed over the weekend, where upwards of 300 people were found in some of those establishments, many of them not even wearing masks, and of course fueling those fears that this might spark a second wave of COVID-19 infection.